So thank you for joining the session. This is, I think, number 5. And some of these meditation talks will be new material, just giving you some new ideas. And sometimes I give you 10 questions, and some of you are saying, oh, that's too much. So sometimes you get just a couple of them so you can think about it during the week. So that's also quite effective. You can think about it for 4 or 5 days and then just write down what was your experience during the week. So that's good too, just a couple of questions. And sometimes we will just review some questions. So there was one again that some of the students were asking if we could look at, and is the idea of objects, your relationship with objects. So I just thought I'd cover them just very quickly, maybe just a couple of minutes each one. So the idea with objects is really to, this question is really it's a way of inviting you to look at, objects in a different way. Just to notice them, anything that's around you. Usually objects are, in a sense, there's a means to an end. So for example, if you want to drink water, so you're just going for the water, but you're not thinking about the cup. If you're going to eat, you just grab a plate. The intention is to eat, so you use the objects as a means to an end. Shoes, same. Well, if you're going to get into your car, it's really where you're going. So it's something to do with the future almost in a way. So we use these tools, these objects. So it's only an invitation to slow down and to be aware of these objects. It can be the fridge, it can be the curtains up on the wall to stop the sun or the cold or privacy. We don't really think about them much in that sense. We don't really give them, we do, but it's just the way that we live. We don't really give value to them. Maybe you are attached to objects, that's fine. So some of them you can have an attachment, and some of them you don't care. You just don't care what it is. So we're looking at the value, maybe the respect of, and looking at how beautiful these objects are, and they're part of our lives. And, so just to pay attention. So that's what I meant about it's having a kind of a loving relationship with everything that you have. So there's nothing else really to say. It's just a matter of maybe you just remember this, next week, or there's a moment where you're picking something up, comes to mind, and you just look at the object a little bit more and pay attention to it. So that was the intention, just to look at the objects around you. The other one I want to cover a little bit is the talking to God question. So that was kind of interesting. I just said that, if you had a chance to talk to God, what would you ask? And so probably also today I put up on Facebook, there was a story about this man looking for God everywhere. He was running towards God, just trying to find him. And one day he found this house that says, house of God. So he was all excited and goes and knocks on the door. And then suddenly he realized, my God, what if someone actually answers and it's God? And suddenly it's like the search is over. What's going to happen next? And what he's going to say? So he just ran away. And instead of waiting to see who's going to open the door, he just ran away. So there's a story, you can read it if you want to. It's an old story, it's on the Facebook page. So what did I mean with that question is, in class we talk about different ways of communicating with God. So communicating with God, of course, if you're religious, you may take it that way as God. How do you communicate with a higher intelligence, or how you communicate with your inner God or your inner guide, or how you communicate with your intuition. So that is one of the, for me, that was the number one thing I think I mentioned to you in the classes. If I can just try to learn one thing or teach one thing, is really there, is to realize that you have the connection within, and to keep on asking, that higher intelligence for guidance in a way. So one way of putting it through the Tai Chi is, we talk about balance, is that you have, if you're going to look at it as just yin and yang, for example, so the yang is the energy. We talked about the thinking part of you. So you're always thinking, and there's a narrative going on in your head, the self-talk is where your opinions are and your judgments. So that is when you are thinking and talking. And then the other side, we said, is where you, let's say, is the opposite. Yeah, so there is no thinking. So if you're not talking, then you are just listening. So you become a listener, you become the observer. No preconceived ideas. You just kind of open and empty. If possible, that would be like the opposite state of mind. Yeah. And what we've talked about as well in classes was that if you are just talking all the time, then there is not much chance for the information, the message from the voice from the inner self to come through. So for that to happen is that we have to stop that narrative and stop that talk in the head. And when you stop, you're creating a gap. Yeah. So we talked about that even last session. So when you become very still, when you return home to your center, you're creating an opening. And in that opening is where you're able to communicate. Let's say you can communicate with some higher intelligence. So I don't use the word God, of course, only when I was, starting to be a Catholic priest, you will talk in that way. But as I went away from that, and for me is, you could say that this is my opinion again. I'm not telling you to think the way I'm thinking. But for me, the way I would put it is that there is no God in that sense, but there is a creator, there is an intelligence. We have access to it through, as has been tried to pass on through the secret schools or the mystery schools. Your intuition is how you communicate. So the question would be, how do we open the gate? So I have a couple of things I wrote down on that question. So what some of the students were asking. So of course, the first thing would be, how can we open that window or gate for the God within, let's say. Yeah? Another one is how to communicate. Do we have to ask or talk to the God? So that's the other one. And then you have of course, what you're going to ask God. So if you have a question, some schools say that to ask your intuition for something, and if you're going to ask for intuition, then to be ready because the answer will appear. As long as you're really listening and you're open, you're ready for the answer. Now, when you're asking a question, let's say, well, who's asking the question? So you could say, well, the ego is asking, or the persona, or Bruno is asking the question. So the identity, Bruno here, I'm asking the question. Consciousness doesn't ask the question, so it's your ego part, let's say, that is asking the question. So, is there something that you want from consciousness. So that could be a question for you to answer next week if you want to. I mean, I may even say something now, but if you want to write it down, it's fine. Or you can just watch the video later on. But you could say it to yourself, is there something you want from consciousness or from this higher intelligence? Or you may be in a position that you don't have anything to ask God or consciousness. Just like a child, yeah? Just before they start thinking, the child is just open and listening. So you're just paying attention and you're open. So for me, that is the very important state that we're trying to achieve during the day. It's just that, it's when you become just open, you're receptive. And therefore the importance of not being in your head all the time. So we'll just stop there for a minute. So if there's anything that you can write down now, it's fine. Or if you want to ask anything, I'll just give you a couple of minutes. So I think any school, if you are in meditation or a monk, it just depends on how this, the structure is of the school. So when you think about the Shaolin monks, for example, it's all about creating some kind of method, some structure where you develop discipline to train physically and to require this strong focus. But the focus later on is just for that, it's for awareness. Yeah, everything is towards creating this really deep awareness. So you can't go back like being like a child almost, where you become a bit of a sponge and you're not interested in your opinion and your ideas anymore. You kind of, we talked about some of the questions before, is are you being educated or indoctrinated? So do you have a conditioning? Do you have a lot of these words that we use again today is preconceived ideas? Have you already have something set up in your head? So we're trying to remain totally empty and fresh. So we are, of course, suffering. If and this is what I went through. If you are going through a lot of grief and pain and anger, sadness, you may have a lot of questions, of course. Why is this happening? Why is it happening to me all the time? These kind of things. So that is just the ego asking. That's okay. It's important. You have to ask. But then if you're going to ask that question, you just have to realize now, okay, create the space now. You've asked the question, stop complaining. Ask the question and now just wait. And that wait could be 3 days, but you have to wait. So in the Olympic archery, again, so important is you shoot the arrow at the target. If you miss, you stay open until the information comes to you of what you need to do next so you can change it, so you can get it better. But you're not going to shoot the arrow and then complain because you're not listening. You're going to do it again. You're going to shoot another arrow and complain. So you need to shoot the arrow and just become awareness. So that's the only way to learn. And I had to, it's quite painful because, you're missing 99% of the time for years and years, but you don't give up. Yeah. So you really know that that is the answer. You shoot, you miss, and you just wait. And then you shoot again, miss, and wait. So of course I started to love archery because the more I did it, the more answers would come about how to shoot the proper arrow. And then I shoot maybe a 9, not quite a 10. So then I'm thinking, okay, I'm not thinking about you kind of asking yourself in a way, what do I need to know so I can let go a little bit more and shoot a 10. So, and then when you apply that afterwards, you can apply it to anything that is upsetting you, or anything that goes wrong in your life. You can just observe and watch. So then you find that you don't have much to say, really. Because you really don't want to miss anything that is going to come through. So if you're talking all the time, all you can hear is your own talking and what you have to say. So you become really quite excited. You realize that you can be quiet and still. And then you decide that that's more important for me now. I just had enough of thinking and talking and thinking. And so it becomes like it's all about you. You start to become aware of your ego. Oh, this is what the ego is all about, actually. And the last question that I wanted to cover was something related to time in the past. One of the students asked. And the student said, I wrote it down here, the past is so important. So we must not forget the past. So yes and no, again, of course. But what I'm trying to explain is just a different point of view of the past and of time. So usually in the 60s, it was the way that my teacher would talk, and it was quite helpful for me. Is this idea of time being just like a ship or a boat in the water. And the idea, the similarity is that, for example, you've got the ship in the water, and the ship will create this wake behind it. So when you turn and you look at the wake, you can see where it has been, in a way. Yeah. But at some point, the wake disappears. So it fades away. So in the same way, just as your past memories tells you what you have done, the wake shows you where you have come from. So there's a similarity that they use in Zen. But the important thing here is that the wake does not drive the ship. It's something kind of simple, but we don't really look at it. So to live in the now, you need to know where the present begins. It all starts now. But we're always going into the past. So in the same way that we would say the wake does not drive the ship, it's like saying the tail does not wag the dog. The dog wags the tail. So there was something kind of that the Alan Watts would say as well. So we need to know the present moment, and it starts now. And the present moment is the only thing that you have. So therefore, we have to get rid of this habit of thought, where you define yourself by what has happened before. So to reach that freedom, you have to stay present. Does that make any sense? So the past, okay, the past is important in that sense, but the present is more important than the past. So if I suffered, you can just let it go. It's the past. You don't need to keep on carrying it on. And it doesn't control you, the past. So generally speaking, when we look at it, yes, we are free this moment to choose, our thoughts. All right, so those are the things that I think some of those questions that students, it was on hold for a while, I meant to cover. And I might give you maybe a couple of questions just for you to, again, give yourself plenty of time to meditate on this. Um, the question is, what does it mean to make a decision? So we're looking at the word decision. What does it mean, decision? So you could just answer what the word decision means, or in this case, I'm just putting it in a phrase. So the question is, what does it mean to make a decision? The next question, what does it mean to make a choice? What does it mean to make a choice? And I guess the next one is, what is the difference between a decision and a choice? And if you wanted to add that other question before is what do you want from consciousness? Yeah. Or for your inner guide. I mean, that question is, I'm just coming up with it now. It's like, are you asking your inner guide something every day? Is this part of your daily routine? Are you asking your inner self or your inner guide for direction or healing or something? So that's something that you can contemplate on. Okay, so those are the only questions really. And then maybe next week, yes, I'll give you another 10 to play with. Again, of course, some students haven't written and they said they don't have time or they only wrote back with a couple of answers. That's fine. It's just for you to work on it, yeah, because it's creating this thing which you are getting out of your head in a sense of thinking and going more into the awareness side. So it's very helpful. All right, so I'm just going to leave it now. And do you want to leave it open for any questions that you want to ask, or just sit in silence is fine. All right. So if you, I think if you did watch the last one, we did talk about questions as well. Yes, you have a lot of questions, and eventually you don't have any questions. So that is a state that happens. We talked about the Zen teachers. The Zen teachers are always trying to make sure that they get rid of the questions instead. Don't put an answer in its place. It's for you to end up in a place of where you question less, as I say, because you're just observing and what in a way what happens is you do have a question, but because you're so open, the question already immediately comes with an answer. Yeah. So that's kind of I'm just trying to explain it maybe differently. So, and sometimes you may have a question and the answer comes later on because you're still fighting the problem or the person or whoever. So you got this problem with someone. So we always fighting in a sense. So the whole point of Tai Chi is not to fight. So you don't want to fight life. Yeah, we talked about that. So you don't want to fight life. You don't want to fight people, really. But especially we talk about in this inner journeys, you don't want to fight with yourself. And you may find that you're always fighting with yourself. And if you say, no, I don't fight with myself, okay, that's fine. But maybe just have a look. Just imagine if you were fighting with yourself, then just think about it. You know, what are the things that you may be fighting? Because when you are in this state of awareness, you don't really, you're not fighting. Yeah? You're just observing things break and fall apart in a sense. And you realize you can't do anything because it had happened already. So if something's happening, if you break a glass, it's happened. So you can't go back. It's happened already. So you just take it from the present moment. But to go back and expect a different result is silly because it's already happened. So I'm not saying that yeah, of course you're complaining and it was your favorite cup or whatever, but the thing is that it has happened. So you need to be pretty, we would say, sharp and pretty quick with your awareness to realize that it has happened and you stay present. And then you deal with it. And there is an energy that helps you deal with whatever's happening. You know, trying to figure it out. How you're going to get out of this one. So trying to figure it out already, you know, your brain goes like this. Yeah, it looks like I'm constipated already. Trying to think how I'm going to solve this problem. So it kind of is more of a relaxation. You just open up, relax, and just watch. Okay, it has happened. Okay, no questions. Oh, okay. We're coming to the end, and everybody's has no more questions. I'll have no more students.
We're just numb, Bruno. It's been what's it, 4 weeks now?
No questions is good too. All right, so yeah, thank you for joining. We're trying to keep it short, so like this half an hour. It's something very easy for us just to get together wherever you are. Some of you are out of Auckland and other countries, so it's quite nice because it's a way of just keeping in touch and looking at you know, this kind of philosophy of the inner journey. And do write emails as you've been doing, and I'll have a look at that and maybe talk about some of those questions you may want to ask privately. I won't mention your name, and then we can just look at the questions. Okay, thank you so much, and we might see you soon. for the Tai Chi Shibashi set number 1 and the set number 2. Okay. Thank you so much.